Hello and welcome to another edition of GreenFleet Talks. My name's Kate Armitage and I'm your host for our discussion today. And joining me in the hot seat is Abhinav Vasu, who is Associate Vice President EMEA at Geotab. Nice to meet you, Abhinav.
Nice to meet you as well, Kate.
We've not spoken before. I'm intrigued. We've spoken to Geotab many times, but I'm intrigued about you and your role at Geotab.
Yeah, sure, Kate. I mean, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me on this talk, and I look forward to a very engaging session. So my name is Abhinav. I'm the Associate Vice President for the Solutions side of things in EMEA. And basically what that is we work with all of our customers to really find the best solution fit based on our large product suite that really works for them. And the way we're able to do this is because of the vast volume of customers we've got. We have a lot of lessons we learn from each of them individually. So we feel that it's a conglomeration of learnings from everybody, and everyone's learnings helps the other. So that's kind of how myself and my team, that's how we work. I've been in the industry for about 18 odd years, and this and similar veins. I worked with OEMs before Geotab for about 12 years, very much deeply into the research and development side of things. So very crucial to understand the data that we get from the vehicle, the richness of the data, and really unlock a lot of value from that. So that's a short introduction for about myself, Kate, and I'm sure we can go into some detail as this goes through.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful, actually. And I think we would all agree that no two fleets are the same. It's a really diverse sector. So to be able to effectively bespoke your solution based on what the individual fleet needs are is pretty crucial.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, what we do at Geotab is we try to vocationalize the fleets to really understand what fleets are actually doing in terms of the kind of trips that they're taking, the kind of makeups that they have. So we try to get them as similar to each other as we can. Yep. But you're absolutely spot on. The actual operations of individual fleets are going to be different.
Yeah.
There's lots of cross-functional learning, I think, that fleets can get.
But I mean, that's the beauty of a digital solution, right? Okay, so what I wanted to discuss with you, you've been in this industry for 18 years. I've been working in e-mobility for 15 years, right? We're coming up to the end of 2025, which leaves us with 10 very short years before we see the phase out of petrol and diesel vehicles. It worries me, I have to say, in terms of what has to be achieved. But what are the benefits for fleets who are preparing for this transition now? And I think more crucially, what potentially are the risks of waiting?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kate. I mean, first of all, I just want to just touch on the 10 years that you mentioned. I mean, a decade for something as complex and of a high magnitude such as this, you're absolutely right. I don't think that's very long. So 100%, I think fleets that act now are at a very strong advantage. So, for example, initiating electrification transitions, thinking about what their electrification roadmap is, using the tools, using the data that they've got, I think is something that fleets should be doing now. You're also considering other things such as, 66% of light-duty vehicles in the UK of an internal combustion engine can already switch. So the question asked, or rather the question I would ask to the audience and the people watching this would be, what are we waiting for? Why aren't we working on that switch now? I think early adoption also helps fleets capitalize on a lower total cost of ownership as well. We are seeing something on the likes of about 13,000 odd pounds per vehicle over a typical 7-year service life of a vehicle. You asked about the risks now about waiting, and I genuinely think, and we at Geotab also genuinely think that waiting introduces significant risk. So you're talking about things such as supply chain, infrastructure bottlenecks, all of these together, along with vehicle availability based on the supply chain. Also, if you go a step further, it's probably also the earlier you adopt it, the earlier you're able to work with the drivers of the fleet. to really understand the best operational methods for an electric vehicle, because they are different. They are very much better in many different ways, but it does take a little bit of change for the drivers, a little bit of change management. I also think the delay causes a lot of financial exposure to, a rising landscape of carbon-based penalties as well. So we're talking about total cost of ownership, but then you're also talking about the cost of carbon as well. And the more ICE vehicles you've got, the carbon penalties, in my view, are only going to go up. Yeah. So I do think this needs to happen sooner rather than later. And I do think fleets that don't do it are at risk.
Yeah, it's a great an absolutely great answer. I mean, we've at GreenFleet, we've worked with fleets who have been on this electrification journey for well over 10 years, and they're still nowhere close to being fully electrified. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So why on earth you would compress it to a sprint is a really good point. And I also agree with you that you can't assume that the landscape for traditional ICE vehicles is going to remain unchanged for the next 10 years, because they are going to come under pressure, and in terms of the supply chain, in terms of the availability, and in terms of the costs. So sticking with that traditional business case, because it is what actually, I think that landscape's going to start changing.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you.
Let's talk about the role that you're in charge of a very big territory across Europe and the Middle East. But let's talk about the UK and the role that the ZEV mandate is playing on the transition in the UK. What's your view on that?
I mean, my view is I think we need regulations such as the ZEV mandate. I think it's vital. It helps to drive a certain form of standardization and drive a certain form of a collective goal for everybody. That's I think, a critical thing. So if you look at, if you draw an analogy to, say, vehicle manufacturers, for years in the ICE vehicle space have had specific standards to govern themselves too. So that creates, and it surfaces a regulation that is applicable to everybody from a global scale. So I absolutely think something like a ZEV mandate is very much important. It does create a little bit of complexity, though, because you're talking about, we've got about 10 years starting from now till 2035. So people need to start acting a little faster. And that's where I think data starts to play a very vital role. Validating the cost, for instance. So allowing the fleet to actually analyze the discounts that they're getting against a vehicle's true total cost of ownership, finding immediate environmental benefits as well. So from a data-driven method, what you can do is, for the ICE vehicles you've currently got, for instance, you can find ways to decarbonize them a little bit, reduce the carbon emissions, start to really work on reducing things like idling, fuel usage, that sort of thing. But also tracking an electric vehicle's real-world energy consumption. So I always say this in most of my talks, but OEMs, when they're actually releasing vehicles and they tell fleets and customers and consumers what that vehicle is capable of in terms of a range, battery life, etc., that is done in a controlled environment, which is different from the real world. And that's where, in the real world, data, telematics, this is where it starts to play a very vital role.
You think you know the answer, but until you actually do it, you won't know for sure. And I think kind of what you raise there is actually there's two things that need to happen concurrently, and this is where Geotab comes into play, because yes, the ZEV mandate is great because it keeps you focused on where we're going and where we need to be. But the bread and butter actually is what's my fleet doing today? How can I improve the performance of my conventional fleet at the same time to get the maximum effect almost?
Yeah, correct. And maybe I'd add another point. I think, and we've seen this with kind of the real world and the fleets that we work with. A lot of fleets want to do this. A lot of fleets are starting to use data. So we know that's a fact. So I think the mindset is there. The need for change is there. But there's a lot of unlocked or unknown potential that can be unlocked from the data that they're getting. So it's not just about the way a vehicle is driven, but it's also the way a vehicle is maintained, the way a vehicle is operated from its operational costs. You've got routing, you've got scheduling. There's so many different concepts, and it's just a case of if you want to make a change within a decade and really try to hit that goal, you really need to start now. So just piggybacking on the first point, really important that we start now.
Get started. And I think just kind of to really kind of draw a line under the conversation, it's not just about electric vehicles, and it's not even necessarily about zero emission vehicles, because there is so much more that unlocking of that data can do. It's not just about how they're fueled, as you said. It's about driver behavior and things like artificial intelligence, potentially autonomous vehicles, which I know that you're investing a lot of money in those AI solutions.
Yeah, the AI bit, if we go into that a little bit, I think the AI is really something that's going to be a game changer. From my personal view, as well as from the company's view as well, because when you're talking about the volume of data, so let's just throw some numbers out there, right? So today we are collecting something like 100 billion data points per day. That's in 24 hours, we're collecting 100 billion data points. The vehicles that we have connected now are about 5.5 million approximately. Now, how is a fleet manager maybe a fleet manager doesn't have 5.5 million, but a fleet manager who's got 500, 1,000 vehicles, how are they going to actually trawl through all that data and really find and unlock the value? And that's where AI starts to become, let's call AI like a co-pilot for you. Yeah. AI is a co-pilot for you. They're sitting there and helping you by you asking the AI questions to say, how's my fleet doing today? Do I have maintenance issues in my fleet today? Do I have vehicles that are idling more today than they were yesterday? If so, give me the list. Can you go deeper into that? Let's figure that out. And then they can start to really trawl through the data and figure out what bits need to be unlocked. So we have a product now called Geotab Ace, for instance, which is a natural language. It's like your Chat GPT, but it lives within the database that the fleet manager is actually working with. And they can ask it questions. It also gives you suggested questions that you can ask. It also tells you what you can apply to help reduce a particular problem. So I definitely think AI is something that is going to be a complete game changer. AI has been around for a while, though. Please don't get me wrong on that. It has been around for a while. But what I think is happening now is people are starting to unlock the real value and use of AI.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely true. People are much more aware of the potential benefits, and it's much more accessible to all fleets now. Like you say, you've embedded it within your own software. I long for the day when I don't have to ask it questions, when it tells me, we've spotted an anomaly over here. Have you got 5 minutes to have a look at this data and see what you think? Because thinking to ask, or in your busy day, kind of making that time to ask these questions can in itself be the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's maybe just an interesting quote from a talk I did recently at another event, and the way I positioned that was basically, if your AI was called Sir Isaac Newton is sitting under an apple tree wondering which one's going to fall. But what the AI now helps you do is to say, well, those 4 over there look like they're about to fall. So you can be a little more prepared for it. Yeah. Quicker to the insight, essentially.
What a great analogy. And he might not have been hit on the head.
It would be a different place if that hadn't happened. But
that's true. That is true. Maybe he needed to be hit on the head. What a great place to wrap up, Abhinav. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kate. Pleasure for me as well.
Thank you. And of course, thank you to Geotab for joining GreenFleet Talks, and thank you for watching. Please tune into GreenFleet Television again soon.